I'm here with Christopher, one of the curators. How are you?
Very well. Very pleased that this is finally up and open to the world.
I know, I can imagine. It's been a long process. How has it been?
It's been about 3 years of different stages along the way in assembling this extraordinary group of 78 paintings by Monet, really tracing his entire career, but from a very specific angle. The use he made throughout his career in the built environment, architecture, bridges, train sheds, in order to shape his compositions.
And there's 3 of you that are curating this exhibit. Has it been a collaborative process? Has there been parts where some of you might have more creative freedom than others, or a preference?
It has been a very good and creative team effort, I think. Richard Thompson, our guest curator here at the National Gallery, is the world's leading scholar on Monet, and it was his conception to look at this new aspect of Monet. How did he use buildings in his pictures? It's quite a novel way to look at this artist, whom I think we all think we know quite well, but I think we are seeing a new Monet in this exhibition. And working with Richard, we defined what pictures were best going to make that argument, and then the really challenging thing, how do we borrow them from museums and private collectors literally around the world?
Yeah. Well, it's come together fantastically. So each section, would you mind just explaining the different various sections of the exhibit?
The exhibition in 7 rooms breaks down into 3 very distinct chapters. The first is on Monet and the picturesque, the way in which he loved to find interesting buildings, old churches, say, in the countryside, their steeples sticking up, that sort of organized the landscape around them. And he would paint them from many, many different aspects so that you came to understand not only the building, but the way it inhabited the landscape. The second chapter has to do with the city. He was a city boy. He was working in the 60s and 70s in Paris, visiting London, etc. And he was fascinated by the transformations of the modern city. And so this second chapter looks at him depicting the rapid changes that modernity, the railroad, etc., were bringing to our world. The third chapter, he, in his later years, begins to focus more and more intently on great masterpieces of architecture and to show them up close. It's as if the rest of the landscape begins to disappear, and he focuses his gaze on the facades of buildings, such as Rouen Cathedral, such as the Palazzi of Venice, or at buildings through the mist. This is why he kept coming back to London around 1900. He was fascinated by the effect mist and fog had on buildings like Parliament, and would paint them obsessively over and over again.
You know, it's stunning to see the natural elements and how that relate to the architecture through his perspective. And finally, last question. It might be hard to answer, but what is your favorite piece and why?
It's very hard. I think that one of the very greatest pictures in the exhibition comes to us from the Pushkin Museum in Moscow. It's one of the absolute centerpieces of Impressionist painting. It's his depiction of the Boulevard des Capucines in Paris, showing gentlemen looking down in the street from a balcony. It's a work of 1873, and all of Impressionism, everything it's going to achieve, is achieved in this extraordinary picture, which is one of the wonders of the exhibition.